The great hall of the Zirathi Palace stood silent like a frozen dream. Silver pillars touched the high crystal ceiling, and glowing lanterns floated gently in the air. Hundreds of alien nobles and human diplomats were present, yet no one smiled. This was not a celebration. It was a sacrifice disguised as a wedding. Captain Elias Ward, a human soldier known for his bravery in the war, stood at the center of the hall. He wore a dark blue military uniform, heavy with medals and quiet sorrow. His hands were steady, but his heart felt restless. He never wanted this. But Earth's leaders said it was necessary, for peace, for unity, for the end of bloodshed. Beside him stood Lady Seraphine Zirathis, the only daughter of the alien emperor. Her skin was pale silver, glowing softly under the lantern light. Her long white hair flowed down her back like moonlight. But her eyes did not move. They were clouded with milky white, unfocused and empty. The whole galaxy knew. She was blind. Seraphine stood still, her fingers pressed against the soft silk of her gown, trying not to tremble. She could hear whispers floating around her like sharp knives. A blind heiress given away to a human. How humiliating. How cruel. She cannot even see her own husband. But Seraphine heard something else too. Elias's heartbeat. Strong, calm, yet filled with quiet pain. He was just as trapped as she was. The priest of the Zirathi Empire stepped forward. His voice echoed across the hall, speaking the ancient vows. To unite two worlds, to bind two souls, in peace, not in love. Elias looked at Seraphine. She could not see his face, but she sensed his gaze, soft, respectful, not demanding. He spoke the words he was ordered to say, but his voice was gentle. I, Elias Ward of Earth, accept this union. A moment later, Seraphine lifted her chin. Though she was blind, her expression carried pride and hidden sadness. Her voice was quiet, but did not break. I, Seraphine of the Zirathi, accept. Silence filled the hall. No applause, no music. Just a heavy truth. Two lives were now bound, not by love, but by war's bitter ending. After the ceremony, they were taken to their new quarters, a private chamber deep inside the palace. The room was beautiful, filled with silk curtains, floating lights, and gentle perfume of alien flowers, but it felt like a cage. Seraphine walked slowly inside, her hand brushing the wall to guide her. Elias followed, keeping distance to give her space. You do not have to fear me, Elias said softly. Seraphine stopped. Her voice came like a broken whisper. I am not afraid of you. I am afraid of being owned. Those words cut deeper than any weapon. Elias stepped back, his voice firm but kind. You are not a prisoner to me. I will not touch you, I will not force you. You have my word. For a moment, Seraphine did not speak. Then slowly, she nodded. She moved to sit on the edge of the bed, her hands resting in her lap. Elias stayed, near the door, sitting in a chair, keeping a respectful distance. Outside the window, the twin moons of the Zirathi sky rose quietly. Inside, neither spoke. But something small happened. No chains, no pressure, only silence, and the first fragile thread of trust. Seraphine had always known darkness, but tonight she felt something new. His voice, his heartbeat, his quiet respect. Elias was not like the others. He did not see her as a trophy or a symbol of victory. And Elias, he looked at her and wondered how someone could appear so fragile and yet hold so much silent strength. They were strangers, forced into a bond neither wanted, but this was only the beginning. The night after their forced wedding felt long and heavy. Seraphine sat quietly near the window, her pale eyes turned towards the sound of soft wind touching the crystal glass. She could not see the stars, but she could feel their silence. Elias sat on a chair across the room, polishing his sword even though it was already clean. Neither of them spoke. This was not a marriage. It was a negotiation signed in blood and silence. In the morning, sunlight entered their chamber in golden beams. Seraphine woke before Elias. She moved her fingers along the silk sheets, feeling the texture to understand her surroundings. She stood, walked carefully, her hand tracing the edge of the wall. Every step was controlled, graceful. Elias watched her quietly. He didn't offer help unless she asked. He understood she had her pride. "Breakfast has been brought," he said softly. Seraphine paused. "Where is it?" "To your right, a few steps ahead." His voice was calm, slow, careful as if he feared his words might break her. She reached the table slowly. Her fingers brushed against a warm cup. She could smell something sweet, alien fruit tea from her home planet. They sat together, but not close. She ate in slow silence. He watched her gently, noticing how her head tilted slightly whenever a servant whispered outside the door. Her senses were sharp, sharper than any human's. After a while, Elias asked, "Would you like me to describe the room to you?" Seraphine froze for a moment. No one had ever asked her that before. People either ignored her blindness or treated her like a helpless child. But this man, he asked. "Yes," she whispered. He spoke softly. "There are white curtains floating near the ceiling like clouds. The walls are silver with soft carvings, your people's ancient language. The bed has silver wood posts and white flowers hanging above it. The window shows 2 moons in the morning sky." Seraphine listened silently. She imagined the room through his words. It was peaceful, gentle. For the first time since the wedding, her lips curved slightly, almost a smile. Elias noticed but did not comment. He simply continued, "There's also a small garden outside. If you want, I can take you there." She turned her face towards him. She could not see his eyes, but she could hear truth in his heartbeat. "Why are you being kind to me?" she asked softly. Elias lowered his gaze. "Because kindness is the only thing I can give you when everything else has been taken." Those words touched her chest like warm light. Later that day, Elias guided her to the small palace garden. He did not hold her hand without permission. Instead, he walked beside her, slowly describing every step. "The air smells like morning rain," she said quietly. "That's because the flowers here open only at sunrise," he answered. Seraphine knelt near a silver-blue flower. She touched the petals gently. They felt soft like thin silk. She lowered her head and whispered, "I have not been allowed to walk in this garden since the war began." Elias looked at her side profile, so calm, so lonely. "You can come here whenever you want," he said. Seraphine tilted her head slightly. "Even though I am your unwanted bride?" Elias stood still. His voice was firm but gentle. "You are not unwanted, not by me." Her heart gave a small, painful beat. No one had spoken to her like that before, not as a symbol, not as a sacrifice, but as a person. As the sun began to set, they returned to their chamber. The silence between them had changed. It was no longer cold. It was soft, careful, like early morning fog. Seraphine sat on the bed, her fingers brushing the edge of the blanket. Elias stood near the window, watching her. They still did not know each other. They still carried pain inside their hearts. But for the first time, in that quiet room filled with soft moonlight, it did not feel like a prison anymore. It felt like the first step toward something neither of them had expected. Days passed slowly, like soft pages turning in a book no one wanted to read. Elias and Seraphine lived in the same chambers, but their worlds still felt different. He was a soldier from Earth, strong, disciplined, used to giving orders. She was an alien heiress, fragile in sight but strong in silence, used to being used, not understood. Yet something gentle had begun to grow between them, not love, not yet, but a quiet understanding, like a seed buried in cold soil, waiting for spring. Each morning, Elias walked with Seraphine to the gardens. He described everything he saw, the colors of the sky, the shape of the clouds, the way light fell on the silver leaves. Seraphine listened, not because she needed the description, but because his voice made the world feel safe. Sometimes she would speak too. "When I was young," she said one morning, fingers touching the cool stone bench, "my father told me the stars sing. I believed him. Then I lost my sight. People started looking at me with pity. They thought I was broken." Elias's voice was quiet. "You are not broken." Seraphine pressed her lips together. "Even so, they gave me away." Elias looked at her, seeing pain she tried to hide. "They may have given you away," he said, "but that doesn't mean you are lost." Her hands paused. She turned her face slightly toward him. "Why do you say things that hurt and heal at the same time?" He didn't answer, because he didn't know. But Seraphine had a secret. Something she had never told anyone, not even her family. At night, when the palace was silent and Elias had fallen asleep in his chair, Seraphine would sit near the window, her pale eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. She could feel everything, the heartbeat of every living thing, the whispers of the trees in the garden, the distant hum of stars. She could see, but not with her eyes. She saw with her soul. It was called the sight beyond sight, an ancient power of her bloodline, a rare gift, a dangerous one. If the council knew, they would use her, control her, turn her into a weapon. So she stayed silent. One night, Elias woke and saw her sitting alone by the window. Her white hair glowed under the moonlight, and for a moment he thought she looked like a fallen star. "You're awake," she said softly. She didn't turn, but she knew. "You couldn't sleep?" he asked. "I don't sleep much," she whispered. "The silence is loud." Elias stepped closer, but stayed a respectful distance. "If you ever need to talk, I will listen. I can't promise to fix anything, but I'll listen." Seraphine's fingers curled slightly over her dress. Her voice trembled just a little. "Everyone listens to answer. No one listens to understand. I will." The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of trust, fear, hope. The next afternoon, rain began to fall. Soft, cold drops tapping on the crystal window. Seraphine stood near the door, her hand on the frame, listening to the sky cry. "Would you like to feel the rain?" Elias asked. She hesitated, then nodded. He led her outside, letting the cold raindrops fall on their skin. Seraphine lifted her face to the sky. Drops rolled down her cheeks like tears that didn't belong to her. "It feels alive," she whispered. Elias watched her, something warm building in his chest. Not desire, not yet, but admiration. "You are not as fragile as they think," he said. She lowered her face, wet hair falling around her. "Neither are you." That night, as she lay on her side of the bed and Elias sat in his chair, something changed. They did not speak. They did not touch, but for the first time, Seraphine didn't feel alone. And Elias felt like he was finally protecting someone, not because he was ordered to, but because he wanted to. Still, the world outside their chamber was turning colder. Whispers were growing louder, and secrets cannot stay hidden forever. Peace inside their room was soft like a candle's light, but outside those walls, darkness had started to gather. The palace corridors were no longer quiet. Servants whispered behind doors. Soldiers stood with tense faces. Nobles walked with angry eyes. Some hated the marriage. Some feared it. Some wanted to use it. Commander Varen, a high-ranking Zerathi noble, stood in the council hall, his voice cold. "The heiress was forced to marry a human. Our people feel shame. Our loyalty to the throne is shaking." Another noble added, "The humans think they own us now. And the princess, she sits beside a human soldier while our empire bleeds." The emperor, Seraphine's father, listened in silence. His face was hidden behind a silver mask, but his fingers tightened slightly on the arm of his throne. He had sacrificed his daughter for peace, but now that peace was cracking. Seraphine did not know the full danger yet, but she felt it, like a storm inside the air. Each day the palace sounded heavier, footsteps faster, voices sharper. One evening she sat near the garden fountain, listening to the water fall like broken glass. Elias stood nearby, watching the sky change color. "You feel it too," she said quietly. Elias turned. "Feel what?" "The fear," she whispered. "It moves through the walls. The servants don't look at me anymore. They look at the floor as if I am already gone. Elias's jaw tightened. He had heard rumors from the human guards too. Whispers of rebellion, assassination, kidnapping. "You are not alone," he said firmly. Seraphine tilted her head slightly. "But we are only 2 people." "Sometimes 2 people are enough to stand against 1,000, he replied. That night, rain poured over the palace roofs like falling stars. Seraphine stood by the window. Her pale eyes turned to the sound of thunder. She didn't know Elias was awake, watching her from the chair near the bed. Suddenly, footsteps. Fast. Heavy. Coming toward their room. Elias stood immediately, hand on his sword. The door burst open. 6 Irathi soldiers rushed inside, armored dark as storm clouds, eyes burning with anger. "Step away from the heiress," their leader growled. Seraphine froze, heart pounding. She could hear every breath, every movement. Elias stepped in front of her, sword drawn. "What is this?" "She is not your possession," the soldier barked. "We are taking her back. To her people. Away from you humans." Seraphine held Elias's sleeve gently. "Don't fight," she whispered. "You'll die." Elias didn't move. "Over my dead body." The soldiers attacked, metal clashed against metal. Sparks flashed. Elias fought fiercely, every strike precise. He had fought in wars before, but never for someone like this. Never for someone he chose to protect. One sword cut across his arm. Blood spilled. He didn't stop. Seraphine stood back, horror filling her heart. She could sense his pain, sharp, burning, but also his determination. "Elias," she whispered, voice breaking. He didn't look back. "Stay behind me." When the last soldier fell to the ground, silence wrapped the room like a thick blanket. Elias's chest rose and fell heavily. Blood stained his uniform. The sword trembled slightly in his hand. Seraphine moved slowly toward him, guided by the sound of his breath. She reached out. Her fingers touched warm blood on his sleeve. Why did you do this?" Her voice shook. Elias looked at her with tired eyes, pain and softness mixed in them. "Because your life is yours, not theirs. Not mine, yours." Her breath caught. No one, not even her own family, had said that to her before. She took his hand carefully, holding it between hers. Her touch was gentle but full of emotion. "You are hurt." "I've been hurt before," he said quietly. "This is nothing." But Seraphine knew it wasn't nothing. Outside, thunder still roared. Inside, in that broken room, something powerful happened. Fear and blood had brought them closer than peace ever could. Their hearts were no longer strangers. But the storm outside was only just beginning. Blood still stained the floor of their chamber. The storm outside had calmed, but inside Seraphine's heart still trembled like a fragile leaf in the wind. Elias sat on the edge of the bed, his arm wrapped in white bandages. The pain burned, but he said nothing. Seraphine stood near him, her fingers gently pressing against the blanket. She could smell iron, the scent of his blood, and something warm inside her chest ached painfully. "You should rest," she whispered. Elias looked up. "I will, but are you all right?" She nodded. But he could see the truth in her pale eyes. She wasn't. Silence followed, soft, heavy, full of unsaid words. That night, Elias slept for the first time in 2 days, his body finally giving in to exhaustion. Seraphine sat beside the window again, listening to his steady breathing. The moonlight touched her silver skin like cold water. She closed her eyes. The room became different. She could feel everything. She felt Elias's heartbeat. Slow, tired, honest. She felt the whisper of the garden trees. Worried, watching. She felt the stars above, distant, singing softly. Her eyes began to glow faintly, like silver lanterns. This was her secret. Sight beyond sight. She could not see walls or colors, but she could see souls, emotions, life. The universe whispered to her in silence, but she never used it in front of others. She never let anyone see tonight. She didn't hear the universe tonight. She heard him, his loyalty, his pain, his quiet kindness. Her chest tightened. Hours passed. Elias woke to the soft sound of someone crying. He opened his eyes and saw Seraphine sitting on the floor, her hands covering her face. Her shoulders trembled as silent tears fell. He stood slowly, ignoring the pain in his arm, and knelt beside her. "Seraphine?" She didn't turn. I'm sorry, she whispered, voice breaking. I didn't want you to get hurt. All of this is because of me. Elias shook his head. No, this is because of war. Because of people who cannot see your heart, she whispered. But I can see theirs, Elias frowned softly. What do you mean? Seraphine hesitated. Then slowly her pale eyes opened and glowed faintly under the moonlight. Elias froze. Her eyes didn't focus like normal eyes. Instead, they shone softly like stars seen through water. I am blind. But I am not blind, she said in a trembling voice. I can see people's hearts. Their pain. Their truth. I can feel the world breathing. Elias's jaw fell slightly. His breath caught in his throat. He had known she was special, but this was something sacred. You never told me, he whispered, her fingers twisted together. Would you have believed me? Yes, he said without hesitation. Because I believe you. For a long moment she said nothing. Then tears fell again, but not from sadness, this time from relief. You're not afraid? She asked. Elias shook his head. No, I'm only afraid you've been alone with this secret for too long. Seraphine looked down. I thought, if I told anyone, they would use me. Control me, turn me into a weapon. Elias gently took her hand. His touch was warm, steady. I won't let them. I swear it, her lips trembled. Why? Because I don't see a weapon, he said softly. I see a girl who deserves to be free. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his shoulder. For the first time since their wedding, she let herself be weak. Elias didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stayed, like a shield made of quiet warmth. The stars outside continued to sing, but now, Seraphine wasn't listening to them. She was listening to the heartbeat of the man who had chosen her, not because of duty, but because of something deeper. The night felt different now, not peaceful, not safe, but honest. And honesty was the first step toward love. The morning after the night of revelations was quiet, but heavy with tension. Seraphine sat near the window, fingers resting on the windowsill, listening to the soft hum of the city beyond the palace walls. Outside, the Zerathi Empire was stirring with unrest. Rumors of rebellion, whispers of betrayal, and angered nobles filled the corridors. Elias stood near her, quietly watching. His arm was still bandaged, but the pain didn't slow him. He had faced armies, alien warlords, and dying planets. But nothing had shaken him like seeing the world through her eyes, feeling the weight of her soul. Seraphine, he said softly, they cannot decide your life for you. Only you can. She turned her pale eyes toward him, glowing faintly in the morning light. And what if my choice destroys peace? What if they call me a traitor or a fool? Elias stepped closer, kneeling beside her. Then they see the truth. You are not a pawn. You are not a prize. You are a person, and I will stand with you no matter what they say. Her chest tightened. No one had ever said that to her before. Not her father, not the council, not any of the humans or Zerathi who treated her like property. I've lived my life listening to others, she whispered, deciding what I must do, thinking I had no choice, and now, I feel like I'm standing on a cliff ready to fall, with you beside me. Elias's hand brushed hers lightly. Then fall with me. We'll face it together. The council summoned her to the main hall. The nobles were angry, shouting, pointing fingers. The princess has been corrupted by the human soldier. She will betray her people, one cried. Another shouted, this marriage is a disgrace. She is meant to serve the empire, not a human. Seraphine walked in slowly, hand in Elias's. Her white hair glowed softly, her presence silent yet commanding. She stopped at the center, facing the council. She felt the weight of every gaze, every whisper, but she did not flinch. I am the heiress of this empire, she said, voice strong and calm. But I am not a tool. I am not a prize. I am a person. My life belongs to me, and I choose how I will live it. Gasps and murmurs filled the hall. Elias stood beside her, silent and steady like a rock against a stormy sea. The council leader bellowed, this is rebellion. You defy your emperor, your people. Seraphine's pale eyes glowed brighter. I do not defy them to harm the empire. I defy them to save it from fear, from anger, from cruelty. And I will not live a life that is chosen for me. She looked at Elias. Her voice softened, but her strength did not fade. And I choose him. Not because he is human, but because he sees me, because he respects me, because he stands with me when all others fall away. The hall went silent. Even the Emperor's mask-like face did not move. Elias felt a shiver run down his spine. He had never seen anyone speak with such power, not from wealth, not from strength, but from the soul. He gently squeezed her hand. "Then I choose it with you," he said softly. "And I will stand by your side forever," the council whispered. Some were angry, some confused, some afraid, but they could not break what was true. Seraphine turned back to Elias. Her heart pounded. She had never felt this freedom before. Never this safety, never this love, not the kind the universe forces, but the kind the universe allows. "You are not afraid of me?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Afraid?" he said. "No, only afraid of losing you." Her lips trembled. She reached out, touching his cheek gently. "And I will never let fear decide my life again." Outside, the palace sky seemed brighter. The clouds parted and a soft sunbeam touched the windows of the hall. For the first time since their forced wedding, Seraphine felt truly free. And Elias, he felt hope rise in his chest like a warm flame. That night they returned to their chambers. No walls, no chains, no politics, just the two of them side by side. They did not need words. Their hands clasped together, silent promises flowing between them like unspoken vows. The storm outside had not ended, but inside the storm had become calm. Together, they had chosen each other. Not for duty, not for politics, not for fear, but for the hearts that had finally found each other in a galaxy full of chaos. And that choice was stronger than any army, any empire, any war. The palace was quiet that morning, but it was not the same quiet as before. It was different, lighter, softer, full of possibility. The council had met, the nobles had spoken, but no one could break what Seraphine had chosen. Her decision, and Elias's unwavering support, had shifted something greater than words or laws. It was truth, and truth had power. Seraphine stood by the window, feeling the warmth of the sun on her silver skin. The twin moons had vanished in the morning light, replaced by the golden glow of dawn. For the first time in weeks, she felt the weight of expectation lift. She was no longer a pawn, no longer a prisoner of politics. She was herself. And beside her, Elias waited. "Do you feel it?" she whispered, turning her pale eyes toward him. "The world, it feels different." Elias smiled softly. "Yes, it's like the first breath after drowning." Her fingers brushed his hand, a simple touch that carried every unspoken word between them. He took her hand and held it tightly, not as a soldier protecting a duty, but as a man choosing to protect the one he loved. Outside, the palace guards and citizens watched cautiously. Rumors of the marriage had spread like wildfire. Some expected rebellion, some expected tragedy. Instead, they found something unusual. A human and a blind alien heiress standing together, unbroken, unafraid, and unshaken. It was a quiet revolution. Over the next days, Seraphine and Elias walked together through the palace gardens. She had her hands on his shoulder lightly, walking slowly as he described everything around them, not as a guide, but as a partner sharing a world. The flowers, the scents, the texture of the stone paths, the hum of distant life, it all became a symphony of experience, not limitation. "You see so much," Elias said, watching her fingers brush a silver-blue flower. Seraphine's voice was soft but steady. "I see what matters, not with my eyes, but with my heart, and you let me see it safely." Elias smiled. "Then we see together." Their laughter was quiet, fragile, yet full of warmth. It echoed through the gardens like a promise, a signal that peace could exist even after fear, and love could bloom even after pain. Not everyone accepted their bond immediately. Some nobles grumbled, some human officials whispered doubts. But the people, the ordinary citizens of both worlds, watched and learned. They saw a human soldier willing to protect an alien princess, and they saw an heiress willing to step forward. Not as a symbol, but as a leader, a person, a soul unafraid to choose her own destiny. For the first time, fear lost its power. The Empire breathed a little easier. The humans felt respect, and Seraphine felt freedom. One evening, as the twin moons rose slowly, painting the sky in silver and violet, Seraphine and Elias returned to their chamber. They did not speak immediately. Words were unnecessary. The day had been full of small victories. quiet celebrations, and the thrill of living truthfully. Seraphine sat on the edge of the bed, fingers lightly touching the fabric. Elias sat beside her, careful not to crowd her space, yet close enough to share warmth. "You forced nothing," she whispered. "They may have forced our wedding, but everything else. You gave me choice. You gave me freedom." Elias's voice was soft. "And you gave me hope. That even in war and politics, something real can exist, something worth protecting." Her head tilted, resting gently on his shoulder. He wrapped his arm around her, protective yet tender. The room glowed softly under the alien lanterns. Outside, the stars whispered their usual songs, but inside, Seraphine and Elias had found their own rhythm, the heartbeat of two souls choosing each other. That night, for the first time, they slept without fear, without walls pressing in, without whispers of rebellion. The universe was vast, the galaxy dangerous. But in that quiet room, they had everything they needed: trust, respect, and a bond stronger than any empire could command. The next morning, the palace awoke to a new truth. The people had seen them together, and whispers of admiration replaced whispers of shame. Slowly, they began to understand that strength was not only in armies, not only in crowns or bloodlines, but in hearts that chose courage over fear, love over duty, and freedom over submission. Seraphine became known as the heiress who saw souls. Elias became the shield of two worlds. Together they were not rulers, not pawns. They were symbols of hope. In the quiet of their chamber, Seraphine turned to him and whispered, "They forced me to wed you. But loving you is my choice." Elias pressed his forehead to hers, voice soft but full of conviction. "And protecting you is mine." Outside, the twin moons rose again, silent witnesses to a universe that had learned something new. Even in the darkest moments, hearts brave enough to see and choose could change everything. And as the sun rose higher, filling the room with light, the galaxy seemed to exhale. A new dawn had begun,